Hey, how's everybody doing? Well, follow me regularly. Know that there was no posted video today, and that's just because I'm running so late. I just had some things to take care of this morning, and by the time I got out, and I ran into a very good, nice person, and I talked to him for about 40 minutes outside. So I am not rude in that respect. But anyhow, it's a strange day. They know the guy, the shooter. This guy had some mental problems. I listen. I know that every mental problem a person has that person doesn't walk around with it stamped on his head, so you can't identify them all the time. All right, you have to have had some sort of interaction with the person. You've had to care to talk to that person at some point in time to be able to diagnose that kind of a problem with somebody. It doesn't work that way. You don't look at somebody and say, well, there's a fucking nutcase. You know, it's like with Trump. Trump's eyes are very deceiving because he looks like he's very deceptive, and he looks like he's losing his ability to think cognitively or whatever else he's doing, move right, and everything like that. And then the next time you see him, his eyes are alert and everything's going on. Now, there's a lot of temporary, rapid treatments for that stuff. And is he getting them? I don't know. I have no desire to sit down and try to talk to Donald Trump because, as I've told everybody in the past, my dislike for that man is so strong I couldn't be trusted in a room with him without trying to punch him in the face. I don't want to shoot him or kill him. I just want to punch him in the face. You know, he's a fat piece of crap that's ruining the country. And didn't say the country was perfect. It wasn't a great country, but it was in better shape before he got his hands on it. I go around now. We've begun to learn that there are people that are pulling the strings behind Trump, like maybe Stephen Miller, maybe a few others, with money and whatnot that are in there and pulling Trump's strings. So my question is, who's pulling Stephen Miller's strings? Who's pulling some of these guys' strings? Is it a conglomerate of rich people, or is there one really sick fuck out there that needs to be taken care of? You know, how do we know that? How do we know that by getting rid of Trump, we're going to solve all our problems? And that's the problem with the American people in general. When we do stuff like that, we try to solve our problems, and then we do something like get rid of a president or something like that, and then they think everything's going to be better, and it's not. All right, it's this particular situation is like an amoeba or something that's got its tentacles out everywhere, and we have to figure out who are the people in the center of it. Is it just the authors of the 2025, or is there somebody else out there? Is it just rich people, or is there some maniac leading this group? This is what has to be decided, and that person has to be taken care of. Because you're not going to be, you arrested and thrown in jail isn't going to work. I don't think. I think you're going to have to really resort to violence when you find out who that person is. But I don't want to say that, because I don't know who that person is yet. You know, but they're not alone in this. I mean, this could be a collective brain operation. You know what I mean? Where these people with similar thought patterns have connected and decided that this is the way they want things done. Hitler wasn't the main man. Hitler had ideas, and people were afraid of Hitler, just like they were afraid of Trump. But Hitler was nuts. So is Trump. So what do? With Hitler, it was the people around him that were just as bad, if not worse, than he was. And some of them you couldn't get rid of them. So, you you had to go after the entire country, really. You took down the military structure and you forced them to surrender, and then you executed them because just they were worse than Hitler was. I don't know whether Hitler would have gotten executed. I don't know whether we had proof that he actually committed the crimes or issued the orders that caused these crimes to be committed or what. I really don't know. That's one of the things that's very, very difficult to determine in a situation like what we have, because they insulate themselves. Bad people aren't like really bad people aren't like Trump. They don't want to go out and stand in front of the crowds and have him do this and do that. They don't want to do that. They want to stay in the background. Being out front makes you a target. They take somebody like Trump, make Trump the target. Let Trump stand out in front of there. He's a big bully. He can do this. We'll give him some protection and whatnot, which they've done. And then you have to try and get around him. Oh well, that's not easy. I mean, it's just that's just the way he is. So all the reviews are in about the football and the halftime show. It was something like 6 million went to see the Trump alternative, and 138 million actually. Or what did they say? It wasn't. That was the amount of people that saw the game, and then it was like 10 or 20 million less that actually they did the halftime show. I thought the number for the halftime show was 138 million people watched it. I think they were looking for things like Springsteen to show up. They were looking for controversy. That inspires a lot of television activity. A lot of human activity. When you expect controversy, people watch to see what's going to happen. People watched to see if ICE was going to storm the field. People watched for a lot of different reasons, not just because it was bad money. I I'm not a fan of Bad Bunny. I don't dislike him. I don't know anything about him really. I heard a little bit of his music, and it was like rapping, and that's just not something I enjoy. I don't like rap music from anybody. You know, the fact that it was in Spanish had nothing to do with it. I listen to Spanish music all the time. Uh, Most of it's the older guys, Juanes and a few of the others that are around. I liked. I thought when I finally got to see Juanes live up in Connecticut one time before came down here, I realized what a great guitarist he was, and I said, "Wow," So that's a thing. So anyhow, oh boy, what else can I talk about? Let's see what we did. That shooting is a horrible situation in Canada. I Like I said, I don't know how you can protect people from that, because you don't. I don't know. I mean, people say it's like when you interview people after it, they might say, "Well, he was a little strange. I always thought he was a little strange. What's a little strange? Polishing an axe handle on the front lawn. I mean, what do you call a little strange? Where does that definition come into when you're dealing with these people and they say stuff like that? That just really radicalizes me. I don't understand that at all. Uh, I don't know. Let me see if there's anything with live chat over here because nobody's around. All messages are visible. Okay. So anyhow, I you know How do you tell? How do we protect ourselves against stuff like this? What I really get upset with is what was good about Donald Trump at any point in time in his career that the American people jumped behind him and supported him so strongly. What was ever really great about that man? You know, he had proven himself a inefficient businessman, unsuccessful is what I would call it when you bankrupt as many businesses as he has. They say, well, it's normal in business. Ah, it's not normal. Not the amount he did. He did it. He operated as a criminal and as a crook, and nobody saw it. You know, you have to have dabbled a little on the dark side or something to understand this man. You know, uh, so nobody saw that coming, which is ridiculous to say at the least. Like nobody ever said anything. Even after Project 2025 was released and everything, nobody understood because 800 pages of bullshit is hard for anybody to read, especially political bullshit. So nobody really, I don't think that many people actually read it. Um, on the other hand, don't didn't like Donald Trump, and I warned people about that. What it's not necessarily who he is; it's who's around him that you have to worry about, because he's not smart enough to do all this stuff. You know, and every time one of these things that he's instituted fails, it's because he isn't smart enough to think it out properly. You know, he just gets a bug up his ass and says, "Let's go do this." I got thousands of armed men around me. Let's go. Just let they can't do anything to me. Let's go do this. I still want to see Donald Trump. I will. I don't want to see him cry. Well, yeah, I want to see him in tears too, dragged out of the White House in chains, in tears. His arrogance gone, and just being what he really actually is, just a petulant child that's going to be standing in the corner the rest of his limited time he has left on this planet. You know. But then I want to see guys like Stephen Miller strung up, hanging from the rafters in chains. They can whip him too if they want. Thiel, some of the other places, people like that. Uh, Musk just wants to have a colony of women where he can get laid every day. You know, now he wants it to be on the moon because he thinks he can do that in 10 years. Maybe he can. But now what you have with that situation for those people is a race against time. Because in 10 years, starvation is going to become the rule. Because people are making too many people and they're encouraging that. You know, you can't feed the people you have and you want more people. Oh, wait a minute. You want them to be rich or you want them to be slaves to cater to you. Well, you're not going to be around that much longer, you know. So people like you might still be around, but you yourself, no. You're too egotistical and like Himmler, hiding in the dark eventually they bring you out and they try you and hang you or whatever they're going to do to you. You know, that's what it's about. Now, tomorrow is a unique day in the world. It's called Friday the 13th. Now there are a whole bunch of there's a great many people that aren't getting out of bed tomorrow because it's Friday the 13th. They've taken the vacation days or something so they don't have to go to work. They're hiding under the blankets. There are a lot of people like that. It's called superstition. It's a natural phenomenon that occurs in humans. You know, I'm sure I have a couple that I'm not actually superstitions that I'm not actually aware of, but I've been doing them all my life, and so I'm not sure what they are, but you know, uh, so tomorrow I'm going to be here, of course. But tomorrow it's like you drink Black Russians and black tea, and you'll see black cats sitting on your fence post with their hackles raised, and you'll get nervous. They sense you. They sense the amount of superstition that's in the air, and that brings out the evil in the world. So now we have to be very, very careful about what Trump does tomorrow. And Thiel and Stephen Miller and Musk and all the rest of those rich morons. Some are morons, some aren't. I just, when these people take their music and stuff away from guys like Jeff Bezos, I think what they're doing is they're not solving the problem. They're just limiting. They're just in some way damaging themselves slightly, but they're not solving the problem that they're trying to solve anything. Um, you say you have to hurt them economically, yeah, but messing with their music catalogs isn't the way to do it. If you want to hurt, they're beyond pain. They have so much money they don't care anymore. You can bankrupt their business and they don't care. You know, um, oh, they'll be upset. They'll cut back on their spending maybe a little bit. Won't be buying islands and stuff like that. But when you start to affect the business, you start to affect the people that work in the business, and the people that work in the business aren't your enemies for the most part. They're just trying to get by, just like I am and everybody else that's out there. Oh, well, look, that's it for the live version of me. I'm sorry everything's screwed up today. I'm going to try to come back later on this afternoon and do a regular video. We'll see what happens with that. They're a little bit more time consuming than this, and I do have things I have to take care of. So in the meantime, everybody, go find a subscribe button. See, then you won't have to be tuned in. You'll get a video. You'll get an email announcing that I'm on the air. And if you can get me on your phone, on YouTube, mobile YouTube, or wherever how you're doing it. And that's probably easier than trying to find out what time I'm going to be on, because I have no idea. I don't even know what day it is. Oh, yes, I do. February 12th, because tomorrow is Friday the 13th. See you guys.